So, friends. I can call you friends, right? I mean, sometimes I complain about you, sometimes you complain about me, but I always feel it's kind of friendly. Friends. My problem is that I promised you a video about Team Liquid's Dragon setups, and it's a very relevant topic, yes, because Team Liquid just lost group stage again, despite being the first seed from NA again. But it's not really a dragon problem.
Where are my dragons?
It's more like a mid lane problem. And no, I'm not talking about stuff like this.
Gets built to block off the exit. Pobelter's in some trouble. Ray's coming up after him there. No way to get himself out of this one, and once more, Pobelter in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Because, trust me guys, no one knows better that he shouldn't have been there than Pobelter. What we can talk about, and what I prefer to talk about, is team-wide decision-making and things that teams can look at together to improve or think about and reassess their philosophy of the game. I always would rather kind of talk about that because I feel like they have way more control over that kind of thing than, oh, I'm absentmindedly pushing this way top. This gets more to a core philosophy issue in terms of mid lane and how it's used. I remember several instances this year where I've encountered people who are from NA or talk to NA teams or talk about NA teams or what have you, who have come to the conclusion that it's often very productive to sort of give up CS mid to help other lanes. To some extent, there are good things to be said for that. If you're going to lose something very important in a one-off instance, then yes, you should probably give up lane farm and run mid. But it isn't just about lane farm, it's about the ability to generate pressure as the game progresses. If you do it once, then you're getting a CS lead, which could translate into completing an item faster. And if someone completes an item faster, it doesn't necessarily matter if the lane is relatively even, you're suddenly down an entire chunk of damage. And that creates a window for one team to do something that you can't react to. I feel like this happens to TL a lot. And they have kind of a weird philosophy of when to pull their mid laner. I often feel like Pobelter gets pulled from mid way more often than he should. To kind of illustrate this, I'm going to use a couple of examples from an EDG and a Mad game just to illustrate that they don't just do this when they're against really bad opponents and under pressure. Then I'm going to look at some KT games to see how this exactly impacts their dragon setups and generally some of the macro decision making that they make. Let's take a look at this game. Obviously, they opted into a pretty bad matchup in terms of Scout will always get priority. Galio can still do pretty well in the lane. He can get good push after first back when he has more points in queue, but generally speaking, Azir is a champion that EDG loves because he gets push and scales really well into this sustained damage carry in the case that iBoy wants to play a really aggressive laning ADC, as he does in this game. So what we noticed that transpired so far during this clip while I was yammering my mouth off is that Pobelter used his TP to ensure that he would get the first back. So even though you have Scout have priority in this lane, he's constantly pushing out, Pobelter gets the TP here, and this creates a pretty good opportunity for TL. So the reason why this creates a pretty good opportunity to TL is first we have to make sure we're looking at all of the lanes. On the top side of the map, we have pretty good priority coming back out from Impact in the Sion versus Ornn matchup, so he has the TP priority in this case. So basically he can TP first without losing a wave. Meanwhile, in mid lane, even though Scout has priority, because Pobelter backed first and used his TP here, not only does he not lose minions, but he's going to push out this wave before Scout gets back to lane, which creates a pretty good opportunity for EDG to do something, or not EDG, excuse me, TL to do something, and then meanwhile you're going to see that EDG do not respect this at all. Here we go, we have Clear Love pathing away, so not only that, if Smithy is tracking the jungler, he has a pretty good idea that Clear Love isn't necessarily going to be directly bot side right now. You have Mako, EDG going really aggressive really fast as soon as Pobelter leaves the lane. So doesn't get strict priority, but at the same time he knows that Scout isn't going to be back to lane for a while and he can roam down and get this kill. So even though EDG were going aggressive there, they really shouldn't. They probably panicked and thought, okay, we can get this kill really fast and back out. But this created a nice lead for EDG. Pobelter used his priority really well. The wave actually managed to stack up because of the way that he set it up, and it's possible that the slow push killed minions for Scout and created an advantage for Pobelter as well. I've had to do several takes of this nice clip because I keep accidentally calling TLEDG. The thing is that Team Liquid do not prioritize having a counter pick mid in their draft. So they will play a lot of games where they're not necessarily valuing getting the push in the mid lane. That's not necessarily bad. You see teams get great success off of having their mid lanes blinded. And a lot of times, you know, that just creates a more narrow window for them to make actions through mid, and the rest of the time their side lanes sort of have to be aware of what's going on. Generally how this works is if your mid laner is not getting priority, you would have your jungler go mid. This is a very common thing that Misfits used to do. You would have your also Samsung, when they were Samsung, not when they're Gen G, and literally on fire this year, but the junglers would go mid at a time when the mid laner wanted to back. So even though he doesn't have priority, the enemy mid laner has to back off and respect this kind of altercation, and they help the mid push out the wave so that they can back first, and then the enemy mid laner has to push the wave back also, and match the itemization. So also resets, also buys an item and comes mid. And then because the enemy other mid laner backed first, he pushes out the wave, you have to push out the wave, but that time when he gets back to lane first and pushes out the wave first creates the window in which the first team can do something. So it's always good to get your mid back first and get your good itemization first. That basically creates tempo, it creates a window for you to make an action. And in this case, we see TL kind of do that pretty well. Even without Smithy doing it, Pobelter used the advantage in that he has TP and Scout does not. Scout has Cleanse, which he needs kind of in this matchup. It's very important. So, but let's look at an example where it doesn't quite go that way. What you just witnessed transpire is Uniboy was able to transition from a pushing mid to pick up his blue buff, and meanwhile Pobelter is still clearing the wave. Pobelter gets priority here, but he's not actually ahead in tempo. Theoretically, Team Liquid could be thinking, okay, he left, we know that his blue buff is up, right? We know that his blue buff is up, so he probably just went to get his blue buff, he'll come back, and we'll still be ahead in the play. But because he just backed and got items, and Pobelter will most likely want to back and match that back, they're actually very much ahead in this play, and Team Liquid are playing this way behind tempo. So let's watch the play. Let's see how it transpires. Just make sure you're noting the CS totals because it's 95 to 95. We have Pobelter going mid. This theoretically should be a good play for Team Liquid, right? Because you're getting this kill onto Drace, you're putting Jace behind, and you're getting a kill for your mid laner. However, this play could have gone pretty bad overall, and the fact that Team Liquid are actually still behind in the tempo and behind in the itemization means that Pobelter is going to lose approximately 2 waves doing this. So it's very good that he got the kill, but the event that he doesn't, it turns out to go pretty badly for him, and he'll end up behind in CS, behind in creeps, and look at how much chunk and damage Uniboy is getting on the tower. So theoretically, that was a good trade for Pobelter. He can come back to lane with a lost chapter to Uniboy, and my entire point was about itemization, advantages, and everything else. But at the same time, that's not the only time that Team Liquid kind of pull Pobelter when he doesn't have priority or he doesn't have tempo, and this is another example. Effectively here, because of the itemization advantage that I just mentioned, Smithy decides that this is a good time to invade the bottom lane. You have Breeze backing, but Team Liquid kind of ignores the fact that he has teleport and the fact that Sivir clears very efficiently, so even though they don't have strict priority, K is very, very free to move on the wave here. And Team Liquid don't match. Pobelter can't actually move, and if you noticed earlier on the screen, he lost a fair amount of CS for doing so, at least like a couple of minions, and now he's in a position where Benny got a lead, you have Uniboy getting an assist, and he's still in a problem where he should be able to approach the wave here, but because of the presence of the support and the jungler, Syndra is going to back and be able to compete his lost chapter, and the advantage is basically nullified at this point. This all effectively escalates into Mag getting complete control of bottom side. You have Pobelter at a disadvantage in a matchup that was supposed to be a winning matchup. You have bottom lane with priority, and I don't know what it is in Team Liquid that when they see a complete vision blackout, they feel the need to, well, my dragon senses are tingling, and we're gonna go in now.
1.
will take my dragons.
Let's move on to what you guys all care about, which is Team Liquid versus KT. And I can't blame you. If I have a favorite team, I don't care unless they are against the best of the best, and then I really want them to win. And then if they don't, I really want to know why. This game, we have our usual back conditions. Pobelter backing after UCal backed. Never something you want to see, but then it just gets worse. TL decide that this is a very good time to make a play on KT's bottom lane. Pobelter gets a little bit overexcited, and knowing that he's probably not even that useful, decides to channel in to the bottom lane. You know, you can debate whether or not he had time to cancel that. Probably not. You know, it's probably a bit too late, but at the same time, was it really worth it for him to TP there when he's already in a bad matchup, already going to be at a disadvantage, and most likely going to lose a lot of creeps for that? Let's just flash forward to the bad part. Pobelter coming back from a contest with his jungler that he probably shouldn't have been taken. Tear the Goddess to a lost chapter, gets solo killed by UCal. Alright, we have KT off of that, complete control of the bottom side, even though they have TL have that priority. Good vision down, but Infernal is about to spawn here. So, of course, Smithy has to come down, walk through the wards, check out KT score just chilling, and decide, you know what, we're going to contest this. We're going to go for it. We have a lost chapter against a completed item from UCal. We have no teleport advantage, so if we are committing our teleport from our top laner here, we are absolutely going to lose pressure on top side as well in a matchup that he's also already losing, but we cannot, we can't give up the Infernal. It exacerbates even further to a point where TL just have really limited decisions by the time another dragon comes up and another dragon spawns, because frankly you only have an Archangel's completed for Pobelter. You have a little bit of the next item, but that's kind of an issue. You have therefore Smeb as Aatrox able to get much more priority in a side lane. Team Pobelter eventually gets to the point, eventually gets to the point where he can match Aatrox. He can outduel Aatrox. He can do pretty well with his Zonias, etc. But he's nowhere near that point, and Aatrox has 2 completed items. So you're not exactly in a position where you feel like your Urgot can match Aatrox's push. You're not exactly in a position where you feel like as Pobelter you can effectively trade for the second tier turret, even when let's go back here. Let's check this out. All right, let's take a look at the way these creeps are. Okay, so Pobelter was pushing down on this wave for quite a bit of time. Smeb had to back and go all the way top to start exerting pressure here. So theoretically, he should have tempo, except for the fact that they have no vision control here set up because of the way that the game progressed and the way that the game has been for a while, and in part due to the draft, because obviously you just look at these picks. KT should have prio mid, KT should have prio bot, KT should have stronger jungle matchup, so it's a little bit difficult for them to try to get control regardless. So you're in a position where you don't have enough vision or enough control. KT's bot midsection, these beautiful guys over here. So you're let's talk lane assignments game. Kelsey loves this. You've got your like 3 here. Actually, for them it's a 4. Sorry, I misspoke. You've got your 4 here, just hanging out, right? All that good stuff. You've got your Pobelter, who wants to kind of be down here doing the stuff, but because these guys back first, they're gonna come here, get temporary control. So Pobelter feels the need to fake pressure over here. I think the fake pressure call is good, but he should not be leaning so hard that you end up where you are now. You should not be leaning this hard because you theoretically just want to be able to go back and pressure. But because of the huge advantage top lane that we have with the 2 completed damage items versus Pobelter only having his Archangels and the Codex, you're in a position where, you know, he feels like he's better off clearing this out, putting pressure here, and they're narrowed into this idea of baiting this fight and trying to get the TP to pull Smeb from the top lane so that he doesn't take the second tier for free. So this is the thing. Obviously, Smithy gets this. There's a bit of an issue with the ult. You don't have double lift in position to actually teamfight this effectively, so naturally, because KT have a better setup, you are going to lose this dragon most likely. I mean, you should have lost this dragon overall, but KT are definitely going to win this fight. That isn't even close to the weirdest dragon-based decision that I saw TL make in the group stage, which definitely goes to the second KT TL game. This takes place after KT were able to secure the Rift Herald and reposition a lot of pressure on that mid lane and then try to transfer it to Drake, but because you have the 2-on-2 on the top side, with Doublelift having a BF sword, he's going to get way more out of it with multiple points in his queue than Deathwood. So they force him back. Pobelter feels the need to kind of without a turret roam top and try to make something happen. Obviously, TL have priority. They can kind of just allow this lane to continue to chip. This is the altercation that I was talking about a little bit with the Dragon, where because Pobelter and Impact are actually doing fairly well this game in their lanes, and Impact was able to get a bit of priority on the bottom lane when KT were grouped up for the Rift Herald play, they're in a pretty good position to contest this, and they trade 2-for-1, which is nice for them. Of course, that is not the bad thing. The bad thing that I'm talking about is definitely the part where Team Liquid decide to swap back to make is heading to the bottom lane against priority when I feel like he's better off on the top side. Obviously, you're not playing for a Rift Herald or anything like that, but you're going to probably have a better time trading at this point in the game than you naturally would have. Meanwhile, Deft is getting a lead on the top side, able to push in this turret, able to pressure this turret, and they're playing for a mountain. Just kind of a news flash to people who are not aware, Mountain Dragon takes the longest to kill and is also only really useful if you're ahead. Obviously, they're also playing for this turret as well, but they just kind of swapped away from tempo, which I find really bizarre, and they didn't build up the wave by slow stacking it, so they have really no hope of getting this turret first, and to me it just seems like they just did this entirely for the dragon. Meanwhile, you have a great deal of pressure in the mid lane and the top side. KT basically put all of their eggs in that basket and were able to spread across 2 lanes because Team Liquid decided to just allocate all of their resources to Dragon and a tower, and KT have a huge advantage here. Doublelift is sort of side lane split pushing Sivir, which I feel like was only really a meme for me in Season 6. Probably the very last time that I even considered mentioning it, and here we are again. So there you have it, my take on Team Liquid's Dragon Dilemma and some of the issues that they had this World's group stage. Obviously, part of it can still go to draft, which I touched on very briefly, because if you're drafting a losing mid lane and a losing bottom lane, you should probably expect to lose at least some dragons. And maybe if you have top lane priority, you can do that to use that to swap to that side and contest the Rift Herald in 10. It may have thrown their draft off a bit that Impact didn't really seem to get priority either on the Urgot side of the Aatrox Urgot matchup or the Aatrox side of the Urgot Aatrox matchup. But to me, that isn't something that you point to consistently across all their games, which is that Pobelter is the one kind of taking the short end of the stick in every game. And this is consistent in their domestic games as well, where he's the one who's saying, okay, I can lose this wave and join you at this Raptor contest. I can lose this wave and roam to this sideline. But he keeps doing it and keeps doing it to the point where he's getting solo killed. He's losing a lot of pressure in the mid lane, and you can't really do much for a dragon if your mid laner is constantly not having an advantage. If your mid laner isn't doing well, then that's one half of the map's pressure that you should be relying on. And if Doublelift isn't completely smashing and destroying every single bot lane he encounters, you really can't make the same thing work.
Dragons will bring the world nothing but death and misery, my dear.
Obviously, I think it's a bit sad to see Team Liquid struggle this much. They have a lot of players who've been around for a while and have been really trying and really struggling to do well, which is why I kind of look at these videos and try to find something that's consistent that isn't saying, oh, these players are just bad, because I don't think that's the case. I will never say that players are just bad, but I will criticize, and I will say that this type of play is not going to get you to win Worlds, because it obviously there's something, you know. Anyway, thank you for following these videos and thank you for following my channel. There's one more day of group stage and then I can take a slight break from video making and be back for quarterfinals.